Hey everyone, and welcome to this edition of the Human School's Curation Corner, just one part of our learning journey here at the Human School. I'm Randy.
I'm Rachel.
And I'm coming off mute because my name is Chad.
Nice work, Chad. All right, each episode we engage in a brief conversation focused on a specific resource. We first summarize the author's ideas, then we make connections to our own experiences, and then near the end, we share insights and some additional questions because, of course, every good resource leads to further questions and furthering our own learning. So in this episode, we're talking about an article called 7 Brave Choices Toward a Bright Future for Your School, District, and Community by Carlos Beto and Andy Calkins. Now, they're both co-directors of the Next Generation Learning Challenges. If you're interested in the actual article, you can find a link below this video at thehuman.school. So what are the authors saying? NGLC is a movement network. They're focused on transforming education. And at the top of the article, they have a quote that I love. Here it is. More humans need to grow up learning how to be more human, better at listening, loving, continuously learning, embracing responsibility, better at working competently and collaboratively to solve problems, parse information, understand complexity, embrace differentness, reject hate, and care for our small and miraculous planet. So much there to unpack. So the article is really about and focused on a new national network of schools and districts that NGLC is beginning to form. And this network they call Bravely. And in the article, they spend most of the time talking about the 7 big inertia confronting ideas that are going to be part of the heart of the design of this network. And here are the 7 ideas, which we want to dig into today. Value people over systems and trust over compliance. Live your community's inspiring vision out loud, not just you, everyone. Honor honesty, pursue fairness, be liberatory. Choose your guides with care. Go far by going together. Build on everything you've already built. And the last one, build your new culture in the course of solving your most pressing challenges. So as you can tell from those 7 things, there's lots of connections that we can make to the compass points and the mind shifts, but there are 3 that I'm just going to throw on the table, and then we'll hear from Rachel and Chad as well. So number 1 for me, it's people over systems. I love this idea of trust over compliance, and 2 things that we know currently actually dehumanize this thing we call education. Second, go far by going together. Design collaboratively. This is not solo work. And then the last one, acknowledge work that you've already done. I think so many times when we do transformation work, we forget about what actually got us to this point, and that there are some really positive things that we want to hold on to, that we want to celebrate, that we want to acknowledge. And I think that that's really important, especially if we want more people to join in that transformation process. So those are some ideas I want to throw on the table. What are you guys thinking?
So, Randy, the one that, aside from the ones that you shared, when I think about the building your new culture in the course of solving your most pressing challenges, I don't know that I think that I'm sure there's connection to the compass points, but I think about how many people want to build culture through what I would call shallow exercises, right? So shallow exercises, we're going to do icebreakers, and we're going to go out and we're going to bowl together. And not to say that those things don't have a place in culture, but the way that you build deep, meaningful relationships is by doing deep, meaningful work together. And so with that last point, where you build your new culture on top of solving your most pressing challenges, that's how you develop culture, by doing the work together. And I think so many people, they focus on the small, shallow things as opposed to the deep, meaningful things. And so that really resonated and connected with me, that the work of transformation within a system of your most challenging problems is what's going to ultimately feed and support the culture you're trying to build. So that was one that I just wanted to highlight.
One of the ones that I really loved was around the elements with community. So the two were working together to build on what you already have, I thought was really interesting, because I think often when districts feel like they have to make large scale change, it usually includes like a total wiping out of the people who came before, the systems who came before, curriculum, everything. They start from scratch, and sometimes that's really necessary, but not always. And I think that sometimes it happens without an examination of what exists at your core and what already aligns with your values that you want to keep, and then that you want to build on. And I think one of the things that this article talked about is, this is who we are. Having a really strong sense of that in a culture and in a community is pretty central to being able to do any sort of change work without losing yourself in it, or believing that it's, just simply wiping everything out and starting again. So that was one of the pieces. And then the other one was this idea of modeling organizationally. I think often we are great at making visions and missions that sound good, but aren't what guide us and aren't the touch point for everything that we do and every decision that we make. I think it becomes lip service. And so instead, as an organization, thinking about what is it that we're saying that we value, and then are we making decisions with that value at the center every time? And I think that is paramount to this work. And even for us, we've talked about every element of our work, and we've talked about like the website. Is the website something that represents what we believe? Are we creating a space that then mimics what we're saying is the most important, and allowing people to access information the way that we are talking about as the most valuable? So that's even something that we have to kind of keep coming back to. But I loved that idea, because I think that often it's lost. We all say that students are the center of our work, but then we don't behave in ways that make that true, and not in an insidious way, but just because we kind of forget that we are part of that. And that it's not just the work in the classroom, but it's all elements of it that build on it.
Well, and to your point, Rachel, it's not just that we don't think about them, but we don't include them, involve them, or embed them. We're busy, again, we always talk about how we get frustrated when those who are, hierarchically or bureaucratically above us don't involve us in our decision making. And then we don't ever make the transfer to those who are actually most deeply affected by it, which are the learners. And so imagine solving learner-centered problems without learners. I mean, that's predominantly what education is, sadly. We're trying to solve problems for our kids, and we're not listening to them, involving them, engaging them, and letting them kind of uncover some things that I'm convinced that there are many things that I don't have solutions to, or I have not great solutions to, because I can't see it through the lens, despite whatever empathy I bring. I'm not a 13-year-old anymore. And I was never a 13-year-old in 2022. And yet we consistently don't respect them enough to think that they can come up with some really wonderful and inventive and creative solutions. So one of the things I really wanted to highlight out of this, that caused me to think or reflect or move forward with, was this idea of choosing your guides with care, and being mindful of who you tap into. And I think this is a tension that I've had in the education space for a while, is that, there are quite a few charlatans out there. There are people out there in the edupreneur world who are, looking to make a quick dollar, and they're not necessarily driven by impact or driven by how things are going to directly impact the context of that system. So we talk a lot about how the compass points aren't a program. They're not a thing that you just take and plunk them down, and in 3 steps you're on your way. We're very, I'll use the word sensitive, but we're very aware of the fact that, we're trying to help people develop skill sets and mindsets and dispositions around their thinking to support their work. And I really love that they are being intentional about, being mindful of who those guides are going to be, that it can't just be somebody who comes in for 3 hours at the beginning of the year, or, a one-day workshop. Not that there aren't places for that learning that comes with that, but they can't be your true north because they're not the ones who are embedded in the work and in the community. So being very mindful about who your guides are, I think, is really wise for them.
And oftentimes our best guides are those people who are sort of in the network, and think about how NGLC is creating this network. Their best guides are going to be the other people, the other nodes in the network that are actually struggling and working through similar challenges, but in different contexts. So it's not going to be transplantable from environment A to environment B, but one can say environment A, okay, there's some progress here. And what are the assets? I go back to assets deficits again. Asking the question of what are the assets that those people in that network are bringing to the success that they're experiencing? And how can I learn from that? Not how can I transplant the idea, but how can I learn from that and create an idea, a similar idea that might work in my context, which is always different. Context is king in all this. And I think that they reference that too in one of those 7 belief statements. So I think this is a really interesting article. Any other thoughts anybody wants to share?
I think the only thing I would add was I also just wanted to highlight that they're doing something that I believe we've been trying to do, which is to learn in public. So when they talk about this idea, they're very explicit that, we're going to learn this year, come join us and we're going to learn together. They're not suggesting they have all of the answers. So I'm very appreciative of anyone who says, look, we're going to iterate and grow and figure it out together.
Good point. All right. So we've got a couple of insights to leave with our viewers here. 3 questions to think about. What are your inertia confronting ideas about educational transformation? I love that. Inertia confronting ideas. And how are you building networks with others to put them into action? How do we do a better job of selecting our guides? How do we use our insider perspective and objector mindset to support those decisions? I like, Chad, how you wove those, our vocabulary in there. How do we support schools and structures in both holding on to the parts that are core to their identity while also allowing them to let go of the elements that support the system in a counterproductive way? All right. Good conversation, folks. Thanks so much. And thanks to you for learning alongside us on this episode of the Human Schools Curation Corner. Visit thehuman.school and its Learning in Public Hub for additional resources, and join the conversation in our Facebook community committed to placing humanity at the center of all design. Take care, everybody.